All right, guys, this is part one of why you should buy a house in Japan, but more or less, why I'm buying a house in Japan, and as much information that I can share with you about my current situation and why we're buying a house in Japan and how we're buying a house in Japan, and letting you know that this is completely different than what most of the influencers out there have probably shared with you. If you found this video, most likely it's because you're interested in buying a house in Japan for some reason, and you may have clicked on some of the clickbait from the ones that are buy a house in Japan for $1, buy an abandoned home, buy an Akia for $10,000. You've seen the Instagram shorts and the YouTube shorts. And I'm not saying that that's not possible. That's not what this video is about at all. And I'm not going to get into all the details behind that. What this is a journal with my experience on buying a house in Japan. And it's a completely new approach, or at least one that I haven't found on YouTube yet. Doing this completely on my own solo journey, excuse me, on buying a house in Japan. So I'm going to break it down. This is part one. There'll be multiple parts. If you're interested in this type of content, please subscribe, like, and make sure you comment. And then I'm going to actually ask you to comment a little bit later, but I'm going to go through the process. Okay? Long story short, I'm going to bring you up to where I'm currently at in the process of buying a house in Japan. So currently, I made an offer on a house in Japan. And I'm doing it without any help per se, except for some friends that I have in Japan. And these friends are Westerners like me, Americans, Asians from other countries, Europeans. I've got a history with Japan that leads me to this point. And to tell that story really, really short, and then I'm going to get into more details in several other videos that I'll post so you can kind of see where I'm coming from. Long story short, I lived in Japan from 1990 to about 1996, 96 and a half, and then returned to the United States. So a little bit younger than I am now. And so I've had this connection with Japan, and I just had this infatuation with the culture and everything that probably brought you to this video that you've seen about Japan, whether it's the konbinis, the convenience stores, to the beautiful, beautiful wilderness, all of the things that you've probably watched, the amazing food, the safe culture. It's never left me since I've lived there, even though I haven't lived there for almost 30 years. I've traveled back to Japan over this 30-year span, but nothing that's been long term. It's just go visit a few friends. I did have a short stay where I did some work in Japan around 2011, 2012. I was a short term contract that I did some work there. And then I've been traveling to Japan the last year. We've gone twice. My wife and I went to Japan in October. We went again in July, which is real recent. So there's my quick connection and where I'm at with this video. But this is a different approach. I am going to journal and document my experience of buying a house without an without a third party agency that you might have discovered out there to purchase this home. And what I mean by that is I'm going directly to a real estate agent. I'm making an offer and I'm going to go through the process to buy a house in Japan without any of those agencies. And there's a lot of them that exist out there that I'm not saying are bad. They're probably good, and I may be foolish, and I might learn going down this adventure. It was so difficult that I wished I would have. And I'm not really doing it to save money. I'm doing it for the experience. So here's where I'm at. My wife and I, our last trip in July, we found a house. Actually, we didn't find the house when we were there. We found it after coming back. We looked at a lot of houses when we were there. And I've got stories about each one of those that I'll share with you in some other videos that are interesting. And I think you should be aware of some of these stories because they may be helpful. But long story short, okay, we found a house on a website that we fell in love with. We were lucky, and I do have a lot of benefits. So we were lucky we had a friend that actually has a house in the same city or within a few miles of this home, which is a great advantage. That's part of the reason we chose the area that we chose. It's along the coast. We want to be by the beach. We want to have great access to nature. And I'll get into why I'm buying a home here in a minute. But anyhow, we were lucky that after we came back from vacation, we found this home. We had our friends go to this house with the agent that we met, and they live streamed with us. And we like the home. It checks all the boxes of the things that we want in a home in Japan. So this is part one, and I just want to bring you up to speed or where we're at in this process. So when we were there, our friends introduced us to this agent. They used this real estate agent about 7 or 8 years ago to buy themselves a home. Their scenario is completely different. They live and work in Japan. So their resources, their network, and their ability to speak Japanese is way above mine. So their process is completely different. They're obviously sharing what they can remember from 6, 7 years ago when they bought their house to kind of help us along, but they don't have all the details. So we found the home, we put in an offer, and it took a few days. It took maybe, I want to say it was probably 2 weeks before we heard anything back, and we got great news. The people that own the house have said yes, they'll take our offer. I'm not going to go into the details in this first video of where we're at money wise and all that kind of stuff and how much we offered less than the offering tries. I will talk about that, but just not. I'm just trying to do a synopsis of where I'm trying to bring you all up to speed because if you're interested in this content, this is video number one of our adventure, our solo adventure of purchasing a house in Japan. And I'm thinking it's not going to be easy. It's probably going to take a lot of time, and I may be foolish for doing this, but I think it's doable. And a lot of that comes from my experience of living in Japan. I lived in Japan almost 6 years, and I think it's a phenomenal country with one caveat. You've got to have a ton of patience. And I don't have a lot of patience, but I'm learning to just go slow. The good thing is, our situation is we're not in a rush to buy this home. The reason we're buying a home, this is going to be our vacation home. That's number one. Number one, the reason we're buying a house in Japan is because we're looking for a vacation home. Number two is we're also looking at buying a house in Japan because we're considering retirement. This is not fun, but I just turned 54 years old, and you start calculating those retirement years in your head and you realize it's coming fast. So for you young guys that are out there and gals, it comes fast. And I know you've heard us say that before, but it's almost overwhelming. I swear I was 40 2 months ago. That's how it feels. Once you hit that 40 mark, it just goes. So I really get serious about thinking about retirement, and I start looking at my 401k like everybody does, and my portfolio, and I run some calculations. And man, oh man, I don't know how people can say that they're going to retire in the United States in confidence because I don't have any confidence that I'm going to be able to retire in the United States. A really good friend of mine just bought a house a couple years ago in Mexico and lives down in Mexico. And for the same exact reasons, it's so expensive in the United States to purchase a home. And if you're here watching this video, you know that. You may be from Australia, you may be from the United States, the UK, Switzerland. You've seen all these videos of these guys that are doing this and buying homes there. And the younger generation, they're priced out of their homes. I mean, I just saw a video saying that the medium home in the United States is $400,000. Uh, wow, that is one hefty payment. Anyhow, I don't want to digress and get too far away. So here's where we're at. Found a house that we really like. I'm going to put up some pictures of that so you can see it. It ticked all the boxes for what we want. We want it to be close to the beach, close to nature, something that you could literally move into right away, and that was something that we could live in our retirement. And you're going to find, as you're doing this research, that some people will tell you that homes in Japan are not made to last very long. And there is some truth behind that, but I think there's a caveat. Yes, the homes are not built like they are in Western countries, especially like here in the United States. And I'm in Texas, by the way. So that $400,000 medium home is not the great of a home anymore. But they're wooden structures. They don't have much insulation, if any. They, they're cold in the winter and they're hot in the summer. But you know what? We This is just me, but we live in comfort here. And the Japanese have been living, and they're beautiful. I think the homes are beautiful. I like the styles. I like everything about them. I like the old traditional tatami, the straw floors, the small kitchens. I think all of it is really, really fun. So just because you hear that, I say take that with a grain of salt. Do you need to go in and buy a 30-year-old home and completely gut it? I don't think so. If you're going to live in that house with a young family and lots of children, and they're going to be bouncing off the walls, then maybe all of that is super important to have a younger home. But I don't think it's necessary. So again, this home that we put an offer in that I showed you pictures of, we think it checks all the boxes for us. A place to vacate, go on vacations a couple of times a year. Hopefully between 4 to 6, maybe 8 weeks a year, we're going to go back and use this home, enjoy our time in Japan, great food, all the things that come with it, be close to the beach, be close to some friends. And then second, is it something that we could live in retirement? And I think so. I think this home really does that. Third thing about the home is, could I, in a worst case scenario, turn it into an income property? Something like an Airbnb or a Minpaku that you guys have probably seen. And that's way down on the list. I possibly could. And if I did, that would be plan three or plan ABC. That would be plan C. And it would be more of life changes, can't travel to Japan anymore. The house is sitting empty and I need to get somebody in it. And I would either try to rent it permanently, which I think could be a strong possibility, or put in a digital nomad in there that's 6 months, 3 months, and just try to recoup a little bit of my investment. But that is way down on the list. It's way down on the list. So bringing you up to speed, I want to try to make this video not an hour long. So we put an offer in on a house. We got the offer, and the information that's coming back from our agent is all secondhand. What I mean by that is I'm actually sending emails to the agent. I'm translating those through Google Translate, putting those emails and sending the information off to the agent, either asking questions or providing some information. My first offer was unofficial. I wrote an email out and I just told the agent, we're extremely interested in this beautiful property. We want to offer this amount, X millions of yen, which was a little bit less. And we'll get into other details with other videos of where I'm at exactly number wise on this home. So it'll help you kind of get an idea realistically what you can do. And we offered it. We didn't hear anything back. And still to this day, I've had no email replies back from the agent. I don't know if that's just him personally, whether he's nervous to reply back in Japanese, thinking I'm not going to be able to understand it. I'm not sure what it is. So what he does is when I send an email with either question or information, once he processes that email, he either texts or call our friends that live in the area. I think he texts them and just says, I received your friend's information and we're moving forward with the offer. So in the body of the email, I put in the offer. I waited 9, 10 days. Our friends said they haven't heard anything. And then all of a sudden we get a message from our friends and says, hey, I think they accepted the offer. It's like, still nothing officially back, no official anything. Congratulations, it's great news. The agent said that the people that own the house have accepted your offer. So we get excited. We get super excited. We thought for sure what we're going to start seeing is a whole bunch of emails because their comment to us, our friend's comment was, hey, there's an attorney that's going to start sending you documents so that we can start the process. But in the meantime, the agent asked that you give them some information. They want to know if you can confirm that you are a resident of the state of Texas. Well, if you're familiar with how to do that, I'm not. So I just took my driver's license and I sent him a picture of my driver's license and my wife's driver's license. And then I Google translated both of those so that they could see the actual Japanese translation of the driver's license. Then I took a couple of utility bills and I sent those pictures of those. And I saw also Google translated those into the Japanese and I sent them on. Didn't hear anything. Sent a message to my friend and said, hey, the Obon summer vacation time is coming up. You probably won't hear anything, which totally makes sense. I'm very familiar with that holiday. And then that passed. And then we get a message from our friends that said, yes, they've accepted your offer. We had some things that we wanted to add to that offer and nothing structurally. There was some beautiful art pieces in the house that we asked if we could keep those. And she said, the agent says, yes, most likely if you want to keep the artwork, they're fine with that. And then I went so far as to say, if they want to keep everything in the house, if they don't want to mess with it, they don't want to go back and pick it up and make a special trip, just leave everything in the house. So I think that's what they're going to do. But then again, I don't have an email back from the agent. So my friends indicated that the agent said I should start preparing some real official documents proving that my signature is real. Did a little research, went to the Japanese embassy website, found this document. I don't think this is the document. This is more of, I don't even know exactly what it is. I've translated, I've read it a couple times. It does look like it states that this is confirming your signature and or Hanko, but it also says on here that you need a fingerprint. So I don't know if that's the document he's looking for. So I pushed that document to the side and I'm going to use this document. This document I found just Googling how to authorize my own signature or get my signature notarized. And I found this document. You can see here that it's got some information, Social Security, and what identification this notary is using to confirm this is my signature. So in the next couple of days, I'm going to have that document notarized, probably going to use our passport. So my step is going to be translate this, Google Translate, sign it, notarize it, and then send them copies of my passport so I can kind of get ahead of what I think's coming from the attorney. Not 100% sure what's coming from the attorney, but the agent mentioned this, so that's what I'm preparing. So that's currently what situation we're in right now. It's like a standstill. An impatient American like me, I figured there'd be a lot more communication, but I'm assuming this is normal. My experience when I lived in Japan, there is nothing that happens fast. Sometimes you go through these processes 5 or 6 times and you find out you forgot to use blue ink and they wanted blue and you write it in black. I mean, it could be anything. I've heard some crazy stories. I've heard all kinds of crazy stories. I heard one the other day on a podcast that just it was interesting. A guy went to buy a car in Japan, a short story, and his Honko that he lived in Japan. His Honko, his stamp, his identification, that's a certified identification, had a small chip on the outside of it, and they refused to give him the title to the car until he changed that. So you never know what you're going to get hit with, and I don't know what I'm going to get hit with. This is a solo adventure. This is our adventure of buying a house in Japan. And if you're interested, subscribe. I will try to get as much content on a regular basis, updating you as much as I possibly can to hopefully, if you're going to go down this route, you can do it too. My only suggestion is if you're going to do something like us and not use a third party service that you have to pay several $1,000s to, you may need some kind of friend or connection with Japan. If you have that, like us, great. It's probably going to be a little bit easier. If you don't have that at all, my suggestion is here's what I'm doing on my emails. I didn't get into the details about this, but I'm using ChatGPT on some of my Google Translate. So I will write out in English what I want to say. I take in mind that I need to be extremely polite and professional. Then I Google Translate it. I go from Google Translate and I put it in chat and I ask chat to check my grammar and spelling and punctuation in the form of Japanese. And it typically comes back and says everything looks good. And then I ask chat again, is this polite and professional? And it thinks a little bit and it comes back and it makes small changes. And then I reiterate to chat, I want to be extremely polite and professional. I don't want to be over boring, but I don't want to make any culture mistakes and be blunt and direct and scare off the agent. And I think that would be my advice. If you're going to go down this route without having any connections to Japan, you're going to reach out to an agent, and that agent accepts to start working with you. Number one, be super patient with the Japanese culture. And number two, be extra polite and professional when you're communicating. And if you think you're being patient, you're not. Be even more patient, more respectful, more quiet, and take your time to communicate in a polite manner. That's the culture. That's what they expect. If you're bold and you get aggressive and you start being pushy, you're going to lose that agent, in my opinion. I haven't lost my agent yet. So if I lose my agent, I'll let you know. I have a little bit of an edge because this agent worked with my friend 6, 7 years ago. So I think he understands the American Western culture of being kind of bold. But I am just walking on eggshells with that. And that would be my advice to you. Walk on eggshells. Be very, very polite. I can't say it enough. Anyhow, I'm going to end this video here and I'm going to get ready to post several other videos and some shorts so that you guys can follow along. I just want one favor. If this is the type of content that you're interested in and you think it's going to be helpful to you to go on the same adventure, hit subscribe, hit like, and send me a comment of where you're at in the process. I may not have any answers for you, but if there's anything that I have experienced, I'll definitely share that with you and maybe help you along the process. I'm sure you're probably like me. You've been gobbling up YouTube videos about buying houses in Japan, and it's a fun adventure. I think it's worth the challenge to try to do it without any outside agencies, even though they're probably going to tell you you're foolish for doing because it's going to be difficult. And I'm assuming it's going to be difficult. I'm assuming it's going to take time. It's going to get frustrating, but I'm up for the adventure of doing that, for the experience, journaling it, and sharing it with you. So, without going any farther, I'm going to sign out for right now. Thank you again for tuning in. I hope you join me on this adventure and have a blast buying a real estate, buying a house in Japan. Hey, and one last thing. One last thing. You don't have to buy an abandoned junk home. You don't have to look for that smoking $1,000 deal. It's probably not there. It's probably clickbait. And you can buy something in the 30, 40, 50, $60,000 range outside of the big cities like Tokyo and Kyoto. You're not going to get those there. That's move in ready. And that's what we're doing. Thanks again. I appreciate you.